Alex, welcome to Inside the Firm.
Hey, Lance Psycho, how's it going? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you as well. If you're just joining us, Alex, my co-host, Al Gore, my co-host. I'm Lance Psycho. We host Inside the Firm. It's every Friday. It's an inside look at a raw inside look at a young and upcoming architecture and real estate development firm.
Yep, it's been a whirlwind. It's been these last couple of days. I think I've been nonstop, including all the nights for 3 days straight from Wednesday.
Nonstop what?
Crushing work. Just work. You know, neighborhood meetings, all that.
Yeah, this week has been exhausting.
Yeah, so
ridiculously exhausting.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't stop. We have Saturday. I have to miss. There's an Easter hunt at the mall. It's supposed to be awesome. Andy's going to take the kid, but we have to go get our gun safety thing for conceal and carry and all that.
Yep.
So don't forget that, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And then I got to do family stuff afterwards, and then I got to landscape my yard the next day. So
yeah,
yay.
Yeah. So let's go into fun stuff.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So last podcast, you told the world about your epic failure on the PP.
I don't
test
think I failed.
Of A.R.E. 4.1.
I don't think I failed.
Alex is in the middle of taking his licensure exams,
and I took 3 in a row. And took 2 months to study.
What do you mean by 3 in a row? For everybody who doesn't know.
2 weeks ago on Thursday I took 1. Then Monday I took another 1, and then Wednesday. So it was Thursday.
3 in 7 days.
Yeah, 3 in 7 days. The PPP I only failed the vignette, which makes no sense because it's the easiest one. I think it was just some critical error. They said I got a 3, which is the lowest on it. And then. What was it, yesterday? Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Seems like a while ago.
It does, doesn't it?
I passed my other two.
Yay,
and
congratulations.
Know what I want to do, but I'm not going to do? If I had unlimited money and it was secret, which it's not secret since I'm going to tell everyone. So you know how we go fishing with the boys?
Yeah.
And one of our buddies, Eric, just passed everything.
Yep.
So, and people take a while.
It took him 5 years, 3 months from when he first started taking the tests. He was almost going to start like rolling out of the clock.
Yeah. But I almost want to sign up before we go fishing for the other 2 and just like study as much as I can. Just hope I pass so I could come and say, hey, I passed too.
Hey.
But 1, that would be a crapshoot. And then 2, I actually don't mind studying and learning the material and all that stuff too. And then 2 would probably be a waste of money because I'd probably fail it.
Yeah.
Because it'd be 2 more tests, 2 huge tests in under a month?
That's too much.
Yeah.
That's no bueno.
Yep.
Yeah. So then you talked to your friend, right?
Oh, so then...
So Alex was complaining on the last episode about, and I was too, about just the procedures and the way it happens and the whole process of A.R.E., even though, it is what it is.
Yep. So how it's disconnected and how the wording's kind of weird and how there's these fail things. So I wonder how doctors do it because they have to be really careful that they don't misinformation, that they're very much on the ball. So I called my doctor friend Stu. We'll call him Dr. Friend Stu because that's his name. And basically what's interesting is that they're called steps. So they have 3 steps. And those are, think about them as tests, right? And you take 2 while you're in school and then 1 when you're out of school, but you're in your residency. And it's basically the first one is basic science and like how disease works and, I don't know, just science stuff, right? The second one is then like, it's a little bit more advanced. And the third one is even more advanced. It's like 800 questions. So it's like 8 hours each. They have a board. The board's made up of doctors and all that and teaching doctors. And they're the ones that
come up with... What do you mean teaching doctors? Doctors like they're in a school scenario?
Yeah. So there's teaching hospitals. So like, I don't know, like CU is a teaching hospital.
Yeah.
So I'm sure one of their doctors is on the boards for whatever the tests are. And they do the same thing. So like if they have 800 tests, 100 of those questions will be practice tests, practice ones to really nail in. And guess what their pass rate is. Because architects, honestly, if you go look, it's been steadily going down. So I
think it's like 65%, right?
Yep, some 62. I think I saw one that was like 58 or something now.
Yeah.
So
okay, what is a doctor's pass test?
Give me a guess.
Because 75%.
75%. It's serious business, right? You cannot cut arteries.
You can't kill somebody.
Can't kill anyone.
That's what they say.
Yep. 95%.
Oh my God.
95%.
It's almost as if they're teaching the material.
So I go.
That's going to be on the test.
I go. Well, I wanted to understand this. So
Seriously, 95%.
Yeah, I dug a little bit more into it, and there's a couple reasons it could be that high. One reason, and he makes a very good point, is that you have to take the MCATs. You got to go to basically med school or pre-med school, right? Then you got to take the MCATs or whatever it's called. I might be getting that wrong. Isn't that what it's called?
Sounds about right.
Sure. And then you get into your doctor school.
MCAT. Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah, you'll look it up. And he goes, that's a really hard test. So like everyone, you're already weeding out like 90% of everyone, to get into med school.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep. So they're already good test takers and all that. So I go, oh, that's
right. A lot of memorization, right?
Yep.
Aren't they memorizing a ton of stuff all the time?
I go, that's a really good point. But then I thought, there hasn't been a test that I've actually studied for, and I've studied for these tests.
So you're saying, so back it up here. By them doing the MCAT, what you're saying basically without
they're at a higher level.
Yeah. Well, they're weeded out. They've already done a weeding out process just for you to get in.
Yep.
And not every architecture school is like that, right? Because I think I would argue that our alma mater is sort of like that.
Because it went from,
you didn't have to test, but it did start at 350 students, and then they weed it down to 50.
Yep. And also, so 350 to 50 people who are going into medical or maybe architecture or engineering. I think they already have a higher bar for themselves. They're already dedicated. They already know, stuff like that. So I think you are getting people that are more likely to succeed on tests and all that. So that makes sense, but that doesn't account from a 62%, which is
to
close
95.
to 95. Because there hasn't been a test that I've studied for that I've failed. There's been tests that I haven't studied for and got close to failing.
You mean previous in your life? Previous to that, really?
Yeah, there hasn't been a test that I have actually studied for that I've failed. Have you? Think about it in college. Just take college.
I am thinking
that you
very hard.
Actually studied for, and I studied hard for this test, and I'm sure a whole bunch of people.
No, even when I would do, even on like, I honestly was not good at algebra, and I blame it on that I wasn't taught in the way that was best for me personally at the public school I went to. So then then I went to tech school for 2 years. So then I didn't even do any of that stuff.
Yep.
Then I had to go to college. Then I had to go to university. So algebra was the only one. I think I got like a C.
Yeah,
was the worst test. But then I think I got a B or an A in the class overall. I didn't get a C in college whatsoever.
So I did finally nail down and figure out what the difference was.
What do you mean, what difference?
Between the architecture test and because the structure is the same too, because they really update it like once every 7 years, and CARB does the same thing. They have these practice tests. You could argue that their review board, I don't know who makes up all these questions. For medical, it's basically relegated to people who practice or a lot of people who are teaching, right? So I don't know how many people are teaching, like if NDSU professors are on this board or not for the architecture test. And I go, are there trick questions? And he's like, not really. His sister is either a nurse or a doctor. And apparently like there's another test. She goes, she took like the alternate test, and she goes, that one was a little bit tricky. So like there is maybe one that was a little bit tricky, but you don't have to take that one. And I go, well, here's an example, Stuart.
Oh, good. I was going to say, I hope you give him an example.
Yeah. And I go, Stuart, they will ask a question about sustainability. This is no surprise to anyone, right?
Yeah.
And it's about a building.
As they should.
Yep. And it'll say which principle, what should you do to this building, or which is not applicable, right? And it'll be like, oh, the building is, should you, if you're going for sustainability, there's principles, right? Orientation is a huge principle. Shading is a big principle. Glazing is a big principle. There's more. And so there's like 4 or 5, really big principles, and they'll say, which one will be the least effective, right? And you'll go, well, you didn't tell me where it was at.
Exactly.
So, and here's the thing, like you didn't tell me where you're at, and you listed the top 5. So you're telling me to list one at the bottom and then choose that. And here's what's messed up about it is that I could sit there and argue with anyone, professors, people. I could tell you the positives and negatives of each one of those strategies and how they apply to each climate, right? But yet I might get that question wrong because it's unclear, it's worded a little bit weird, and it's tricky, right? So like I know the subject, but I might not know the answer. So what Stuart said, he's like, he goes, a few times there might be one or two of those, which how much percentage would you say?
Are those kind of questions?
Yeah.
Half,
right? He goes, a few times there's one or two of those. He goes, but when they do those 100 test questions out of the 800, they state and they are looking for, are the students understanding this? Is this clear? Is this conveying?
Is this clear?
Yes.
Holy
So that's
cow.
how they're weeding it down. And I go, is there an inferiority complex going on, or are they trying to limit the amount of architects? Because everyone knows that
literally protectionism.
Yeah, a doctor's valuable. Like we don't have to make that argument whatsoever. So does NCARB think if we make it harder and lower the test score?
Now, is this
that's
Stuart
giving
talking,
us,
or is this you?
This is me. Sorry,
Okay.
This is me. Because I'm just trying to get to like these questions are not clear. They aren't, because if I literally know the subject, which I won't know but in a lot of them I do, because a lot of people who are taking this have been practicing or doing stuff for 6, 7, 8 years plus school, plus then study on top of it. That's the disconnect to me, is that they are really searching for clarity where I don't think NCARB is.
I would agree. It keeps bringing me back to this. For me, this is a logical conclusion of, are you guys making it seem like being an architect is this hard? And I'm an architect.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can say this.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yep.
But not in the way they are making it seem difficult. That's my disconnect. Disconnect. I think it's hard for me, the hardest thing about me, and this is only speaking for me, is knowing for sure, being confident in like calling out certain details or getting a call from how about this? It's getting a call from a contractor. It literally, maybe we made a mistake, or there's just a field condition that occurred where we're like, crap, what do we do about this? Yeah. The call, knowing what to say and do in those situations to cover our butts, to cover the building's butt, the developer, everybody's butts, so that we do protect life, safety, all of that stuff. But that's critical. I'm like, that's the disconnect for me.
And what would be so nice too is that I think that's so valuable, and you could still have the same number of tests. It could still be difficult, but you could honestly teach while you're learning, because you could make those questions clear. Like, hey, you have a situation.
Here's
and
a
maybe
situation.
You know what? I'm gonna take 5. I'm gonna take 5.0, and maybe it's more like that.
Maybe it will be.
Maybe it's more like that. Here's a situation. Here's what's going on.
Perfect example would be like, the contractor poured the footing 1 foot above the frost level. What do you do?
Yep.
What do you do? Right? The structure, everything is relying on you, and typically really what it comes down to insulation, right? You're gonna have to call out like a different kind of insulation to make it so that it's frost
You'll have
protected.
to put probably about 2 layers of 2-inch rigid insulation, exactly. And what's going to be?
So here's let me. Yeah. So now, if the tests were written like that, wouldn't that start helping to generate more competent architects? Young architects, and then therefore from the ground up, wouldn't that start to give more confidence back to the architecture community, and thus then we would be better accepted by the contractors? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because what we've been preaching forever is that if you want more money, if you want more prestige, if you want all this, if you want to be respected, what do you need to do? Take on more responsibility, and more responsibility comes from you actually knowing what you're doing. So I think they went around about it the wrong way, rather than just limiting it, which then makes it, okay, there's a limited amount of architects, so then you can make more money, quote unquote. Or if they find that you don't actually know what you're doing, or what you're doing can be done by someone else, then they change it so that other drafters are doing all that. If you change the competency so that everyone's skill is now rising and everyone is more comfortable with taking on more responsibility. I've heard this in business books. I've seen it all over. I see it with guys in our firm. If you want to take on something and take it off my plate, or take it off of a developer's plate, they will let you. Colorado's moving so fast. Things are so difficult. Man, if you're competent, you do it. I can't. A bunch of our developers, I swear, would give we don't have the capacity to do it, but man, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit for what people allow you to do if you're competent in it.
Yeah, absolutely. People are busy. The people The people who are calling the shots and making the big deals are so busy. The more they can delegate to people that are competent and they're competent in, 100%. Go for it. So just to recap, I don't think, to finish up the whole continued end card discussion.
And I got one last final thought on that.
Oh, I guess Alex was going to cap it up.
No. I'll say the final thought and then you can cap it off.
Okay, go for it.
The only thing with the 5.0 is that it might be geared towards what we're talking about.
That'd be great.
It'd be great. The only problem in this small transition is that all the study material is just a conglomeration of 4.0. Like, okay, study for these 4 to then take these 2. You know what I mean? So, like, there might be a disconnect and there might be some whining by people, a.k.a. me, who knows. But if it is that way, that will be a better step, and there just might be a pain period in the middle. So who knows? Yeah.
So just to recap everything, we're not complaining about the idea behind, or talking about the idea behind licensure. We think licensure is a good thing. We think we're just saying, man, wouldn't it be great if we all came out of this and we were just very, very confident in our practice and be able to make critical calls for critical things instead of like weird foo-foo questions that have no real pertinence in real world practice.
Yeah. Wouldn't you love then, like, after you pass the next day, a contractor or someone calls you up and be like, what do I do here? And you're like, bam, we just went over
this. Absolutely. That's what we're going for here. Okay. That said, I have been enamored lately with the idea of 3D printing buildings. And I wanted to bring it up today because when are the robots going to take over our jobs, Alex?
Soon, hopefully.
Do you think it's okay? How about this? So I've been posting a bunch of articles on F9's Facebook page, Inside the Firm's Facebook page, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, and then just reading them as they come in too. So every week, almost every day, there's some other company that has invented some little robot. They printed a new house. It seems like it's going to happen. Like it's inevitable that it's going to happen.
Can I tell you what I think the future is, and maybe where F9 needs to go slowly? Because I remember you said we're really good at Revit, experts at Revit. So shout out RevitFurniture.com. Get your templates, families. We set up everything so that you can render. Like we really know this. And I remember a year ago us talking and saying we don't want to miss the boat on the next one.
Exactly.
Right? And what is the next one?
Because we feel like we at least have a little ship. A
little
Revit chip. That goes,
yep.
And
everyone's, what's it? Dynamo? What's that other one that all the
Dynamo.
Yep. They're all using that. And I go, I don't see it too much because it seems like it's too much Zaha Hadid, like craziness. It seems like it's very crazy
what
structures.
Dynamo, I think it's Dynamo. Gosh, we're so awful at this. Dynamo, like remembering names. Lumios was the one yesterday. The software that, if anybody hasn't heard about it, is basically it generates random patterns in structures or facades or stuff like that for you, and you can plug in different parameters for it.
But it still works in Revit, so it's not its own standalone.
Yeah, and it produces really cool stuff.
Yep. So I don't think that's where we jump ship and become the leaders in. But with the 3D printing and then generative AI design, and man, did you watch that video? What was the software that they said? It was like Dream something? Dreamcatcher? No.
So Alex showed me, if you just go to YouTube and Google, not Google, but search. Wow, it's become a verb now. Yeah. Autodesk Generative Design. I don't know what the software was that they showed me. It was like a 2-minute video, but what they did is they put in parameters for like this one guy. In the video, this guy was trying to make a drone, and he basically said, "Hey, I need, hey software. Here are 4 points where
4 helicopter blades.
Yeah, here's where the blades are going to go. Here's how heavy the motor is. Make me a structure based on that." And then he put the algorithm, just went through and sifted through, and it went through a bunch of different skeletal forms, and then they show an example of like there's a shear wall on a plane, like a Boeing.
Well, before we go to, and then they looked at it and like, man, this skeletal structure looks a lot like a flying fox. And what was cool about it is that it's sort of, you couldn't have designed that yourself. You'd need a computer AI and processing power to do it because it's so crazy, and it's calculating forces on literally a millimeter, section by section. So here's the leap, right? Every other tool that we've used from basically now to the whole pass is we've directed it, right? So when I draw with my pencil, I am directing where that goes. When I'm drawing in Revit, I am telling it where the walls are, right?
Okay.
And this is basically saying, here's an end goal computer. You do it. You make up all those where the walls go, where the lines go.
With the 3D printing of the building.
No, with the generative AI design. We'll go to 3D printing next. But like that's the software that's going to make 3D printing very, very useful, I think, right? Because now the computer is doing those steps for you. Does that make sense? Like you're letting it loose, which is crazy. Like that's a mind shift.
The only way I can believe it at this point is that I have to like dumb it down for myself.
Yeah.
Okay? So the only way I can think about it properly is let's say we're doing just a simple basement finish.
Yep.
For somebody, we're helping them lay out the basement, right? So we could go take the as-builts ourselves. Maybe at this point, finally, there would like 2 years in the future, there'll finally be an app where we just take photos, it puts together the floor plan, and then we input into that existing floor plan. We say, okay, the client wants 3 bedrooms, a living room, just all of these things, right? And then we say, go for it. Give us 10 options. Yeah. I could see it actually being able to do that.
Yeah, and I didn't go to that leap. What I went to
that's not even a leap.
No,
dumbing it down.
There. I didn't go there. Where I went is the first thing it's going to be used for is structure. So think about our skyscraper in college. We'll say here's a skyscraper.
Okay. That's fair enough. So you at least as the architect have the framework of the building.
Yep. And then I think from there it will go to okay, let's think about sustainability and where the winds come from.
I'm actually on board for something about like in that leap. That because that makes it again, like you said, then it becomes your tool again. It's not replacing your job. It's just, I mean, in a way, it would kind of be replacing somebody's job. You wouldn't have to be laying out. You would be doing less, right? You'd be doing less manual work.
Yep. So now you get these crazy forms that hopefully respond to the site. Hopefully the structure is super efficient. And then how do you make that? And then there's the leap to 3D printing, right? The problem because we talked about this a little bit earlier, is that man, it doesn't make sense now. It doesn't make sense now because you can't use one material for the structure, for the skin and all that. But I swear I saw someone figure it out.
Here's what we talked about, but you guys didn't hear about was, as I asked him just off the cuff right away earlier this week, I said, hey, I want to talk about 3D printing and buildings and what it means for, I think, the profession moving ahead in the podcast this week. And we started talking. The big thing we said was, it might print the structure, but at the end of the day, like, isn't somebody going to have to come in and waterproof it, around the weird ways? Aren't they still going to have to like skin it? It might just take one part out for now.
Yep. So I think I have maybe a semi-solution and a problem to it. But I swear someone 3D printed a burger. Like literally the whole burger. Like they made the different condiments and somehow like it came and squirted in. So what if you had...
That sounds disgusting.
It probably was.
They've been 3D printing hot dogs for years.
So think about that. So think about lumber. And I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that, to lumber. But let's say you're making something and you have a 3D printer and it's making the structure, right? Can't you put different inputs so that while you're making the structure, couldn't one of the nozzles be spraying the insulation? Could another nozzle be making the water barrier? Could another nozzle make that exterior protection that's protecting the structure? And through the we got a client coming in, so we'll pause for 1 second. So we always pause to accept checks from clients. So then all of a sudden you're printing absolutely everything. And then you could even print the gypsum on the inside. Why not? Obviously I don't know how to do this. But then if you even think about our problems that we're going to have with our future development is getting enough people there, having them have the right skill and having them not mess up, right? And then drawing towards the drawings. And now in Revit, when we're modeling everything at a real world scale, modeling absolutely everything, man, wouldn't it be great to just have 5 of those bots do everything and say it's going to be done in a month? And if it can do all those layers, that's how it could work. Now, the messed up thing is how it might not work. And this might be me being old school, but I bet you a bunch of people will be old school. Well, I like a wood finish. I like a wood trim. What are you going to do? Are you going to take a tree, a whole bunch of trees, ground it all up, put it in this 3D printing machine that will then glue it back together? And then you'll make this, like basically what OSB is for structure, when it's just as easy to take a tree, throw it through a sawmill, and it'll cut out these 2x4, and put it in there. So are we going to grind up all these materials to put it through the 3D printing, and then what does that look like at the end? And then does it become fake and plastic and all that stuff? But then aren't we being more efficient because you're using all of that tree, every single bit, because you're just grinding the sucker up and then adding glue later. Because you can 3D print wood. Be a wood structure too.
It's okay. I don't. Yeah. Here's my. So we would want to have one. Let's say this development goes great, and then by the time this development is done, like you can actually buy a 3D printer, and let's say it's just one part of it, right? Just for concrete, because I hate. That's one part of construction I just won't do. I just can't stand it. I've always hated it. And part of it was because like I got yelled at the most doing that work compared to all the other work. So I just have a bad taste for it in my mouth, right?
Yeah. I don't like it because it's hard. I did it in the Army. I was like, this is what?
Yeah. Us concrete workers are big boys usually.
Yeah.
So question is it really, do you think that like this technology is going to be a top-down thing or a bottom-up thing? Because it seems like MakerBots, right? I think there's a MakerBot in the market for like $99 now. It's either $99 or $199, but incredibly cheap. So anybody can get them. Like they're at my son's, at one of my kids' middle schools and stuff like that. I'm just wondering I think my fear is that only these big construction companies are going to be able to afford it and implement the thing, right? And it's not going to be a groundswell from the bottom up type of thing.
Yep. I think about some big company doing a skyscraper where they 3D print the structure and then they 3D print these other layers. And let's say they do want like a nice terracotta finish or something like that. And then the workers, all they do is come and just hang it. That's it. That's their only job, is hanging the facade. I mean, couldn't you see that happen? Can you 3D print glass? That seems hard.
It's got to be molten, right? So no, it seems like no. I thought about the same thing, like steel, right? It seems like the only things you
Wait. I bet you, I mean, they'd have to totally have a clean room, but they do 3D print glass. You've been to a glass factory. Molten, it goes through the whole thing, comes out on this flat layer.
You could think of it as 3D printed.
It's 3D printed. It's just...
You could think of it as 3D printed, yeah. It looks like it.
Yeah. That seems a while in the future.
But I'm talking about, I don't know, for some reason, maybe I just need to get this thought out of my head is it's all done in situ. So it's all done in place, right? I just imagine like there's a bunch of drones around this building site and it's just this constant buzz of like, bzzz, and they're just building the thing from the ground up.
Yeah.
You know, when really, I don't think it's going to be like that. I mean, people like to, like you saw that video of it's this round house, right? And it looks like it's yellow and white or something like that. It might be all yellow, but it went viral like a month ago. Yeah. And everybody likes to see that. Everybody likes to watch that video because like you can see it come up from the ground up, right?
Yep.
But really, I don't know. It could be just 3D printed, all different parts, and then they come together in the end, right?
It could be.
You still got to crane everything in.
The only thing I would say is don't be afraid. I thought you were going to say everyone likes a handcrafted material. You know, everyone likes that texture and stuff. Well, that's probably what a lot of architects said when the first CAD came in. Everyone likes hand drawing.
They still say that.
Yep. They still say that. They still say that. So I would just know, maybe don't let that pass you up, because right now what's being 3D printed is probably equivalent to the first renderings in the 90s, right? They rendered a teacup.
Awful.
Exactly.
The teacup, yeah.
They rendered the teacup. But in 10, 20 years, they might be 3D printing some exterior materials that far surpass in quality, texture, everything that I mean, you can't replace nature because we're literally just born to, we can call out fakes and, you know, biophilia. We're connected with nature and all that, but I think we're at the stage where it's the first renderings, you know, back in the 90s, and that's what's 3D printing. So don't let it slide on you.
I would love to have one. I'll tell you that much.
I would love to start
once it got to the point where if you could buy a concrete printer and it wasn't too far of a stretch to be affordable.
Yeah,
I would seriously consider doing it, because wouldn't that be a game changer for us? But how many people are going to get on board? I don't know.
But maybe again, getting other people on board is harder than you just being in charge and then dictating who's on board and how we're doing it.
And then just making it.
And I think the first steps are when we do let's say we do another fun project, right? Okay, we're going to do it with that generative AI design software. And then we're going to have a 3D printer. and we might make a little bit of model of it, and it might even be a MakerBot or whatever, and it'll probably just be the structure that we'll figure out or something like that.
Okay, then. So here's my final question to you. Now that we have the discussion, is do you think that's the next wave? Like, are you convinced this is the next Revit? This is the next building information modeling? And if you don't get on as an architecture firm now, or as soon as you can get on board and at least have a little ship with the bigger ships, you're going to get left behind.
Yes and no. Because the no part is how far down the chain it will go. Will this only be applied to skyscrapers, big building, and the space industry, which you're going to, it's not efficient to have everything in a tube that fits the same size of a rocket, and then you make all this tube space stuff. It's more efficient to have 3D printing in space and then bring up the materials, and then you can make whatever design. So I honestly think that they will probably lead the way with Elon Musk and everything, with the 3D printing going and with the sensors, because everything needs to have a sensor up there, and then everything will be connected with an AI, and that's how we'll make Skynet, and then Skynet will come down here.
Okay.
But it depends on, is it ever going to reach residential? And I'm trying to think of an example, like, isn't there stuff that kind of stops at the top and doesn't come down? Like steel superstructures and, glass storefront walls. Like, I don't know. That doesn't really affect residential too much. Like, you could argue that there are curtain walls in residential and all that, but you don't need it to make a house. So will there be some big companies that are doing?
I'm going to devil's advocate you here. Okay?
Please do.
The first people that picked up Revit were the big firms, right?
Yep.
And they were doing commercial stuff. But how big of a difference has that made that we were one of, and Robert Wygant of Sumex has said this over and over again to me, is you guys were one of the first ones that I saw out of way back in 2009 that were starting to use Revit for houses. I mean, we just met with a firm yesterday in Boulder. Yeah. Who's still in SketchUp and AutoCAD world, and
blows our mind.
Blows our mind because I really do believe that even though we're 7 people right now, we can get the work done of 12 people.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of Revit.
Yeah.
And the template and everything. So I don't know, dude. It seems like when you do bring that commercial stuff into the residential zone, it gives you a leg up if you can make it happen. I mean, the cost obviously. That was if there's an analogy here, that the cost of Revit is $6,000, right? AutoCAD you can get for like $750.
Yeah, and then the one thing I'd want 3D printers to solve for it to be ubiquitous across all structures would be, 1, I think they'll be able to print the structure. 2, I think they should be able to print the insulation in between, and then at least do the interior finish. Like the gypsum. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a scientist or anything. Because then if you're saying, okay, all I have to do is install windows, put my house wrap, and then hang siding. I mean, aren't you saving a lot?
Yeah.
Aren't you saving
That's the way we built the last 2 tiny houses, and I loved it that way. In that the structure was done. I mean, it was prefabricated by the trailer company.
Yep.
Right? And then we just had to infill everything and just finish the whole thing. I mean, it was a ton of work, but it wasn't simplified. I don't know.
But then here's the other thing too, is like, how much effort do you put in that to the game? Because I don't think it's there yet, but how fast are things moving? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I am interested in
what would make you jump?
I think we have to do a fun project in it.
I see. Yeah. And then you do little mock-ups like you're talking about. That's interesting. All right.
Moving on.
Tangential to this is, so you showed the generative design on the YouTube channel, on that YouTube video, right? You showed me that where Autodesk is coming up with, you just put in parameters, right? So like now if we're putting in, I think you could do the same thing. So let's say somebody buys a plot of land and they say, I want to put this kind of building on. You put in the parameters. What's to stop AI or pseudo AI? That's kind of where it's at right now. It's very close to AI. It's not able to entirely think on its own. You have to kind of feed it the information, and then it solves the problem, right? How much of just people who are clients, developers, regular people, doesn't matter, how many of those people are going to want to work with architects like that versus nope, they want a traditional architect? Like, is there going to be, how like right now in Boulder County there's a whole farm to fork movement, right? So everybody has this, a lot of people have this idea, like my fiance meets with clients all the time that want to do hobby farms,
Yeah.
right? They're literally called hobby farms. Like they purchase like 5 acres and they want to, they live in the city their whole lives and they're like, but I grew up on a farm. And now they have this nostalgia getting back there. So like, I wonder how much of the nostalgia is going to come back on that.
I think it'll be huge, and I think that there will be people who fight it and then say, "Hey, we do think we're handcrafted." There's a huge handcrafted market. There's still people who draw on hand, right?
We work with them.
Yep, that's going to exist, and that's going to stay there.
They're never going to go away, don't you think?
That's going to be 5 to 10%, and then there's going to be the people who don't want to progress or move forward, and then will kind of claim that, but they aren't really handcrafted, and so it won't really work out. And then there'll be people who are just going to blaze in the future and say, you got to do this, you got to do this. But then I think there's that small slice middle ground where if one of those clients come in that want that handcraft and all that, I think you could almost sell them and say, hey, think about this, the structure of putting up a house and what I'd want us to do is weigh out how many sticks go in there, how many trees that cut down, right? And
once we ran the test.
Yep. Yeah. And then show, hey, we still use wood. It prints out wood. But look at what the structure it makes. And then show them pictures of skeletal structures, not in a creepy way, but of nature, of fractal patterns, and say, this is actually getting closer to nature. If you look at, can you bring me that book right there?
Yeah.
It's called Fertile Cities. And the architect is Vincent, I can't even say his name. Just Fertile City. Yep, Calabao. He's French. He's from Paris. Like his architecture, this has to be 3D printed.
Yeah,
but it's very close to nature. He has a lot of green stuff, but even its forms. If you look at, I hope I could. Yeah, look at this one. Like I think he even takes animals like structures to make it up. He doesn't use, as far as I know, he doesn't use AI generative design, but that's where I think you blend back with the hippies, and that's what we're talking about. And we don't mean that derogatory. We mean blending back with nature through using high technology. I think those can come together.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Moving ahead. What do we got next? What do we got next in the docket here? Okay. We had an awesome email come in over the weekend from a Mr. Tim Barber. Shout out to Tim. Tim is a member of the A.R.E architect community, I think. I've seen him over there a couple times, and so his name was familiar to me. He owns Barber Architects, and he just started listening to the podcast over the weekend. Had some excellent feedback for us. Very positive. Really enjoys how raw and inside of a look it is. And so then we asked him if he would be our guest this week to answer the advice question. What's the best advice you got, and what's the worst advice you got? So we're going to pause and listen to his best and worst advice that he's got, and then give you our reaction.
Alex, this is Tim Barber at Barber Architects in Durham, North Carolina. You had emailed me and asked 2 questions. What is the worst advice you have ever gotten in your career? And what is the best advice you had ever gotten in your career? I honestly don't remember any bad advice. I don't remember anybody suggesting that I do something. I tried it and then it didn't work out too well. But when I think of good advice, I think of my father and my last employer, Tim Hoke. My father told me when I got out of college, and I graduated in 1979 from Virginia Tech. Dad was a lighting rep, but a mechanical engineer by degree. He asked me, did I want a job when I got out of college? And I said, yes, sir. And his comment was, I don't care if you're the next Frank Lloyd Wright. If you want a job, you have to be able to do 2 things, print and draw, which is what got me my first job, as I was a draftsman. My second good advice was from Tim Hoke, who I used to work for, who explained to the staff that architects were just a spoke in a wheel, that we were no more important than anybody else. Without everybody's input, we wouldn't have a successful project. I thought that was extremely good advice. Lately, through my experience, and I have been self-employed since '87, the thing that pops into my mind for advice for other people is the quality of my service is not affected by the quality of my client. I have had some bad clients, but I hold myself to a higher standard, and I always finish my projects And I never walk away from a bad project or a bad client. I just won't work for them anymore. So I hope that answers your questions.
Okay, thanks a bunch, Tim, for that. That was awesome to hear that there was no worse advice.
Yeah.
It's easy to be negative. It's hard to be positive. So I commend you on that one. There was 3 points basically that Tim said, and I thought they were great. Number one, you're not. He doesn't. Nobody cares if you're going to be. Nobody's interested if you're going to be a rock star architect like Frank Lloyd Wright. If you can't just do the basics, I think that goes to kind of our core fundamental beliefs that follow the fundamentals first and do them very well, and then build on top of that, and then that's where all the magic can happen.
Yeah. So you said basically you have to be productive. You have to be productive. And what I noticed too is that if you want to be that rock star, 1 in a million, all that stuff, and if you don't want to work for someone, they are looking for you to be productive. So if you don't want to be productive in the way that they want to be productive, you might have to go on your own. So Daniel did this. His first internship, Liebskin, was for some famous guy. Don't even know. And basically they had him just do menial drawings. And he said, nope. And he quit. But here's the caveat is I don't think if you're Daniel Liebskin or Frank Lloyd Wright or anything like that early. Even Frank Lloyd Wright worked under people.
Yeah,
so
Louis Sullivan.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a great point. He worked under Louis Sullivan, and he did just do drafting stuff. Same thing with Norman Foster. Norman Foster got his first job, and literally the guy said, "Just here's a house, and you can do it." But like Norman Foster didn't have thoughts of grandeur at that point. He knew he just wanted to be an architect at his fundamental level, right?
Yep.
Second thing was everybody's input makes a project. Totally agree with that, for better and for worse. I think there are examples where it can be bad. I think you end up, there's sometimes you just can't avoid certain clients or even like cities making bad decisions, and at the end of the day it is what it is, and I think you just have to grit your teeth and get through it. I don't know what else to say about that one. Last one is quality of service. This one I totally agree with. Everybody, you're gonna have a bad client, or you're gonna have a bad project at some point. But at a fundamental level, just do your best job, get through it, and like Tim said, you don't have to work with them ever again, right? You have a choice, you have a freedom, unless you're living in North Korea as an architect, probably don't have a choice, and you have to do whatever they say.
Yeah, and then I think so. I kind of fell off the wagon, to use the wheel metaphor, on this one a little bit. But I think the caveat is quality of service versus quality of product. Because if it's true that all the spokes make the wheel, which is the architect, the end architecture, if that's full of quote unquote bad clients who make poor decisions, the quality of the end product cannot be the best ever, because that wheel, everyone has a say. So that is a little bit different. But your quality of service could be the same. That's not saying that you're going to be able to produce that same thing, because you need to I still say you need rock stars to make rock stars on all level of those spokes of the wheel, or else it's not going to work out, because they're going to hold you back. They're going to make some decision that you can't override or something like that. And then,
Yep. Totally true. Okay. Next thing I wanted to talk about was contract negotiation. So we're still going after this small commercial project locally, and I've never had a and this is the thing we were gonna kind of alluding to at the end of the last podcast that we talk about. So I've never had a client do this, and I've always wanted a potential client to do this, but now that they've done this, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it. So you live, you learn. So when we send off a proposal, the way we do it is we do it in two different ways. It's either a fixed fee, and it breaks down each phase into. So we do, your typical 3 phases: schematic design, design development, construction documentation, and then maybe there's a fourth one if it's permitting, and we have to do stuff like that. But it's all fixed. Like we say, how many iterations design-wise there is back and forth, how many meetings there are. We try to lay out and are the contracts followed to a T? Not always, but generally we try to train our clients to follow the contract or the proposal, right? And then the other one is just an hourly with a top set, or just a straight up hourly if the client really trusts us, which a lot of them do. And those are usually like developers who are repeat clients. We might do like 3 houses in a big development for them, and then they get repeated, but then they get repeated like with different changes and stuff. So this proposal that we sent out for this local work was a fixed fee contract, and the client was meeting with a couple other architects. They ended up sending us. So we got shrunk down from, I think there were 5 firms to 2, so we were shortlisted. It was us versus another one. The client sent back the sent our proposal to the other architect, and the other competing architect's proposal to us, because they were 100% different, and the client was completely confused. He'd never worked with an architect before, so he's trying to understand why there's such a big price difference. So I'm going to throw out some numbers that are not real, but just for a talking point. So let's say he was confused in this way. Let's say our contract was for $10,000 and the other architect's contract was for $1,000. He could not understand why there was such a big difference. And I honestly couldn't understand why there was such a big difference either until I looked at the contracts. We already knew how ours was until I looked at the competing architect's contract. And the way it was set up was, that was his base fee. So it was $1,000 to basically start. And it was worded, in my opinion, in a tricky way, such that it wasn't obvious that, this is just $1,000 to get it started, and it's all hourly with no top set, and who knows how much it could cost.
And the reason I think that it didn't specifically say that. So you came to that conclusion.
Exactly that, yeah.
And why you came to that conclusion
I even had to ask you.
Because you asked
reading
me
this right?
And then I said, what is the square foot of the project? What is the square foot of the project?
It's like 20,000 square feet.
Yep. So that's under 10, per square foot, 0.5%?
Yeah.
Something
like that.
5 cents.
5 cents.
5 cents a square foot. So I go, that's to me, like, if we were doing that in our firm, I'm not saying them, if we were doing that fee for that many square foot, that'd be professionally negligent, because you don't have the time to look over.
I don't think we'd be business partners.
Yeah. For 20,000 square foot.
What are you doing running your side of the firm into the ground?
Exactly. And then they worded something weird like client shall provide plans for the gym. I don't know. It just blew my mind that fee, because most fees are between $1 and $4 a square foot. That's a general middle. There's many exceptions, but to go below, to go a tenth below the lowest,
1 to 4 for that particular project, like that typology. It's basically a tenant finish, to cut to the chase.
Yeah, but and I mean, those aren't California numbers or
wherever you guys are at. But for us, this is kind of the game we're in.
Yep.
So blew my mind, and I got very uncomfortable when I got that email, because I thought, like, man, this is like, if they're willing to share my contract and they're willing to share his contract, then what can I even say here? Like,
because your feedback might be shared too. Yeah. Hey, this other architect said blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and as Denver has I think 1.5 million now. State of Colorado is 5 total, but in my opinion, still like a small town, because I know a lot of people, and every day the circle gets smaller about the people you know.
Yeah, I mean, but you meant 5 million people in the state.
In the state, sorry, whatever I said. So I don't know. What were our final thoughts about why that's such a bad, like, because I asked you, would we ever do this? Is this why we, like, could we, what do you think about doing this to get more projects? How do you feel about this morally? Because it seems like it's a very slick and easy way to get a client to go, like, oh, why wouldn't I go with this? Why wouldn't I go with this low fee? This is amazing. Why wouldn't I do this? Yeah. This is a no-brainer.
I think here's what it leads us to, and this has always been our philosophy, and it kind of reinforces that, is that we've always sold ourselves as the middle of the road price. Not SOM, not anything like that. Those big guys, because we just don't have the capacity, and honestly, you probably don't need all those services and all that overhead. And then the low guys, we would, a lot of times they are just trying to get by, but some of them could be just like us and they just happen to be lower, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we make a strong point for the middle. And when it's that low, I think it's man, you got to realize you get what you pay for. If they charge $125 per hour, that's not even how much did you say it was? 1,000? Wasn't it 1,500?
It was 1,500.
Yeah. So 12 hours. What are you gonna do in 12 hours? Like just to get the zoning setbacks
and the right, but I mean even the as-built, just to get the as-built done. If it's an existing building and it's like a tenant finish or a remodel addition, that type of thing. Here's where my dilemma was. So when I do the fixed fee stuff, it's me telling them it's not going to cost you any more. I'm guaranteeing it's going to cost this much, and that includes printing costs. That includes even revisions from the city within reason. All that stuff, like it's cut and dry. I'm not trying to pull the rug from underneath you. So if we ever tried that approach, I would feel morally inept because I would have to go in and I'm constantly asking for more money. Like what? I thought everybody that'd be like a framer saying I started 100 and then take whatever it takes.
Yeah. So I don't know though, because this is the first time I've seen this, and I haven't seen a lot of.
I want to know how common it is.
Yeah, let us know. I wonder if people would let us know because we're kind of ragging on it.
Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're dead wrong. Maybe we're idiots.
Could be. They passed no PPP, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do ask clients whether we were high, middle, or low. A lot of times we're middle, but a lot of times,
but they never tell me a number, and I actually like that they don't tell me a number. I actually like that they just say you were competitive, and it came down to more experience, or we weren't. This guy could jump on it quicker. Like it's always like actually a pretty good reason.
Yep. But here was that condo project. I'll go into the numbers because
the condo project we talked about last podcast
in Boulder. We were maybe 125,000. It was a huge, big project, and the other people were, 155 or something.
No, they were almost 200.
Almost 200. Yep. But again, that was their bread and butter. But still, you couldn't accuse us of, a low fee. If we would have said like 20,000 or something like that, like that would be like a 1 to 20.
Insanely low fee.
Where we were 75% of this other established firm. And then again.
Let me ask you this.
We even said to them, you made a fine choice. You made a great choice. We didn't fight it.
I wonder what scenario leaves more money on the table.
What do you mean by that?
Here's what I mean by that. Like, let's say you give a fixed fee and it ends up taking, and this happens sometimes, okay? It ends up taking less time than you thought, and then you technically make more money per hour.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you're just doing it at cost plus time, like materials plus cost. I wonder if I don't want to run the analysis, but I'm just curious about which scenario leaves more money on the table at the end of the day.
So you mean because if you always do fixed fees, I guarantee you wouldn't get some of these projects though, because it would be because in my mind I'm like, if I say a guaranteed maximum fixed fee price, I have to account for the city doing.
Crazy stuff.
City stuff, right? I have to account for you. You might come back with 4 to 10 different iterations just because you can't make up your mind or you have a different aesthetic or all that. So then it gets ballooned and I don't know. God, we would really need a spreadsheet of like how many times we proposed that, how many times we got it, how many times
I know
like
that would take a lot of data.
Yeah,
that would take a lot of data. But anyway, it was interesting. So I would love it if anybody listening, tell me if you do it that other way. I would just, I don't know.
The only way I think that we could know and figure out is if we get to 12 person, and basically if our accountant is essentially on staff, and then say always take all these numbers, always take all these hours, see how everything's efficient. That'd be great. But at this low, like you can almost do that if it's just like yourself. Because you could just put that in, but if it's 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, like unless you get up to a number where you can sustain that person, that's basically their job plus all the other accounting.
So yes or no? Would you ever want to do that scenario though?
Of course not.
Okay,
of course not. Sounds terrible. Sounds terrible.
Sounds terrible. All right.
Unless here's the only way I could see it is you'd have to tell them, hey, this is a cost plus with no top set, and give me $1,000 to get started.
Yeah,
you got to lay that out. You got to tell them that.
Yeah, but right. And if we did that, I would be comfortable with that. If you tell them that from the beginning.
That's what.
But then I could just see it getting nasty at the end, though. Couldn't you just see it just getting gross at the end?
Yeah, but the only people that I've ever seen that accomplished is Frank Gehry was doing a house for a rich billionaire, and they spent 5 years developing this crazy house that he paid over $1 million in fees just to design.
Renzo Piano just did that too.
Yep, and then the rich guy said, me and the wife want something smaller, so we're not going to do this. And then he was just cool with it because he wanted a Gehry architect house, all this stuff. So like, that's the only way. And I'm not advocating for taking advantage of rich people whatsoever, but like it had to be, I don't know, the South Park guys saying, hey, we don't know what we want. We just want to keep playing with your ideas. Keep sending us stuff and we'll give you feedback. Mm-hmm. Then I'd be like, that's the only way. Okay, this is, like there's no top set. We're just going to do hourly. I'm like, yeah, fine. All right. Cartman is going to be the inspiration for your house. You know that.
You know that, right? We're going to do a Kenny house,
Soda
a Cartman
Soba.
house. Yeah. Cool. Okay, awesome. All right, well, now we cleared the air with that. Development talk, where are we at, Al?
I don't know, but we have to go because we have another podcast in 3 minutes. Hashtag, which one are we going to be on?
Oh.
Enoch Sears, Business of Architecture. Go listen to us there. We got to cut it off because we got to get ready. We got to go.
All right, last thing is, we're trying to get a better habit of this. If you're listening, if you love the podcast, please go subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Please leave us a review. If you're another podcaster that's listening, I know Evan Troxel listens. We'd be happy to do a co-review. We also love your podcast, and to help each other out in that way. Share this with share this stuff with your friends. Help us spread the word because we're here to help you.
And again, any questions, any comments, you can reach us at akg@f9productions.com. We appreciate you guys. Go out there and crush it.